Well, hello and welcome back. So today I'm going to be approaching things a little bit differently. I'm going to be sharing a very personal story with you. This last weekend, it was kind of a wild one. My 21-year-old daughter, she ended up in the hospital with what we now know is pneumonia. She's home now and she's doing well, thank goodness. But we were there for about 3 days and it was exhausting. I was exhausted physically, I was exhausted mentally, I was exhausted emotionally, and it was really just kind of a roller coaster. And while there's a lot of directions I could take with this story, since this podcast is for recovering people pleasers, then I really just want to zoom in on one very specific moment. On my daughter's last night in the hospital, then we were woken up at 3:30 in the morning. We were both dead asleep, and so when we woke up, we were very disoriented. In fact, how when you wake up and it's a surprise, your brain just kind of fills in the blanks, and it creates some pretty crazy stories. So at 3:30 in the morning, when I could hear a little shuffling going on and I could see that they were getting my daughter up out of bed, then my first thought was, oh no, I must have been snoring so loudly, they want to move her to a new room. It's really hard to breathe well when, nobody goes to the hospital to sleep. But when you're sleeping in chairs and your little makeshift bed and all the things, it just makes it so much harder to sleep. So that was where my brain went in the middle of the night. So we're trying desperately in that moment to grab all of our things. We had about 60 seconds to grab all of our items. We're making sure that, okay, well, let's make sure we get all of our socks. Where's the charger? Did you get that? All of the different things we're trying to think about in the middle of the night as we're getting moved to the new unit. And we weren't getting moved because she was getting worse. We were just getting moved because she was currently in the hospital's overflow, which is in the pediatric unit. And there was a child that was coming into the hospital in the middle of the night, and they needed to make room for them. So as we're going down the hallway, we start to get settled in our new room, and the nurse is just such a sweetheart and looking out for us. And she said, hey, would you like me to grab you a pillow from across the hall, Mom, so that you can sleep a little bit more? And now logically, then that should be an easy yes, right? I mean, it's 3:30 in the morning. Obviously, I'm going to want some more sleep. I'm exhausted. I've barely slept in days. Of course, I'd want a pillow, right? But that's not actually how things played out. Instead, then, my really tired brain, it was like it defaulted back to its factory reset setting of people-pleasing. So instead of thinking about what I might need in that moment so that I could better show up for my daughter, instead, I started thinking about that cute nurse. I was thinking, oh my goodness, that poor nurse, she must have drawn the short straw. That must be so awkward and uncomfortable to have to go and wake up sick people in the middle of the night in the hospital to move them. I just feel so bad for her. I need to make things as easy as possible for her. I was also thinking about that child that must be coming into the hospital feeling a little bit scared in the middle of the night, thinking about the cleaning crew, thinking, oh my goodness, I hope they're able to get the room cleaned up in time. Obviously, there's some urgency. If they moved us out that quickly, this must be so scary for them. And I was also thinking about the rest of the staff. I was thinking how chaotic it must be to be shuffling people in the middle of the night and making sure everybody's still covered. And, well, is our crew going to get changed since we're in a different wing now? What's that going to look like? They're making notes on the new whiteboards and everything. How chaotic it must be for them. And suddenly in that moment, then my need for a pillow, it didn't just feel like a small, simple request, but instead it felt like it would be downright inappropriate for me to request a pillow in that moment. It made me feel like I'd be adding to the nurse's burden. So I told her, no, thank you. I'll just sleep in the chair. That's fine. And that was it, right? It was like a teeny tiny moment. And all of that took place in my mind, it took place in a matter of seconds. But it was incredibly revealing to me because what I realized later was I wasn't just denying myself a pillow. I was making the fact that I'm a human with very human needs, I was making it mean that having needs was irresponsible in that moment. And sometimes that's what people-pleasing looks like. It's not super dramatic, and it's not always obvious. Sometimes it just looks like, being in a hospital, being super exhausted and worrying about your child running on empty, and still deciding, you know what, I don't want to be a burden right now. I don't want to be too much for that nurse right now. And what's really fascinating is how quickly my brain created meaning around that, around the whole situation. So I was looking at that very specific set of circumstances, the fact that it was the middle of the night, the fact that it was a busy night at the hospital. I could hear the helicopter going up and down outside, the fact that this nurse was offering help. I made all of that mean that it is not a good time for me to have needs. Nope, sorry. Maybe if it was any other time, maybe if it wasn't 3:30 in the morning, maybe it wouldn't be that much of a burden. But right now, nope, I don't want to be a burden. I don't want to be an inconvenience. I should not be asking for more right now. I just need to accept the bare minimum, and I need to make things as easy for other people as possible, right? I need to figure out my needs on my own. But here's the truth that I keep coming back to is, yeah, maybe it would have been inconvenient for that nurse to grab me a pillow. And also, do you know what else is really, really inconvenient? It is so inconvenient to be in the hospital in the first place. It was inconvenient for me to bring my daughter in at 4 a.m. on a Friday and then be woken up multiple nights. And then on the last night to be woken up at 3:30 on a Sunday morning after a roller coaster ride of, is she getting better? Is she getting worse? It was really inconvenient to have to move rooms and try to remember everything in the middle of the night when we didn't really have time to prepare for that move. It was really inconvenient to be sleeping in a chair while I was caring for my sick adult child. And guess what? All of that's valid. And all of that can be true at the same time. And this is where many people pleasers get stuck, is we have this tendency to assess everybody else's needs. And we use that assessment to invalidate our own needs. We tell ourselves, well, they just have more going on right now. They need this more than I do. I don't want to make things harder for them. Their needs are more important than mine right now. And in doing that, we silence ourselves. We don't actually look for a way to get our needs met. We don't look for ways to make things more sustainable for ourselves so that we can continue to show up for those that we care for. But what if your needs don't just disappear because somebody else also has a need? What if it's not either or, but what if it's both and? What if that nurse can be busy and she might still have the capacity to grab me a pillow? What if the hospital can be chaotic and I still deserve rest? What if somebody else can be in need of care and they still have the support staff needed that I can get care too, that I can get that pillow? What if all of those things can be true at the same time? And here's the thing that I really kept coming back to is if somebody is offering you something, it's probably because in that moment, they have the time, the energy, and the capacity to give it to you. People don't typically offer help if they can't actually follow through on their offer, right? So that nurse, she didn't accidentally offer me a pillow and instantly regret it, right? I didn't see any regret on her face. Instead, I saw an open and warm smile. She wanted me to be comfortable. She had something that she could offer me to help to bring some comfort and help me to sleep a little bit better when it's next to impossible to actually sleep in a hospital. She was calm and she was relaxed. And so, yeah, also, it is part of her role to make sure that the patient and the patient's mom in that moment can actually get some adequate sleep. That's a very important part of healing. And that was part of her capacity in that moment. It was a part of her job. But I still decided in that moment and on her behalf, without asking her, that asking for a pillow would be too much. In fact, not even that I was asking for a pillow, that accepting her offer for a pillow would be too much of a burden for her. So this week, I want you to just start to notice. Start to notice how many times you tell yourself that, no, having needs is too much. Notice if you're telling yourself that, no, right now, having needs is downright irresponsible. It's not reasonable for me to have needs right now. And then simply give yourself permission to receive. Because guess what? Your needs, they're not a burden. They're just a part of being human. So notice it. Notice it when your brain wants to jump to, I don't want to be a burden. Just notice it. Don't judge it. Don't even try to fix it immediately, but just start to notice it and then ask yourself, okay, is that true? Or am I making decisions for everybody else here? Am I assuming their ability and their capacity right now? And then just really start small, but start to practice actually receiving. If somebody's offering you something, if they're offering you help, if they're offering you support, if they're offering you a pillow, then just consider saying yes. Consider saying, oh my goodness, I would so appreciate that. Thank you so much. Because the goal here isn't to just swing to the opposite extreme, right? It's not about demanding or taking it. That's not what your tendency is. But it's just about allowing. It's about practicing allowing your needs to also exist. It's about allowing yourself to feel supported. It's about making things more sustainable for you. Because I know you. I know how well you show up for other people. I know that sometimes you get really tired and you wish that somebody would be able to show up for you. But it starts with practicing receiving help and support when it's offered. Allow yourself to just practice taking up a little bit more space. Your needs are valid too. And if somebody offers you a pillow in the middle of the night, it's probably because they have the capacity to do so. All right, well, I hope you have a great week, and let's talk soon. Bye now.